about something extra fancy, like some particularly complex and interesting, fancy-looking rapier techniques. What do you got?
Rapier is definitely one of my first loves as a sword art, and so I love getting rapiers back in my hands any times that I can. I think they've got a lot of just beautiful, artful techniques to them. And one that you even mentioned, you're like, oh, incortada. So these steps, any of these steps where we make a quartering step or quarter turn of the circle. One of the names, and this is the one we use in our school, Salvatore Fabris referred to them as essentially twists or turns, girate or girata, just means like a twisting action. And we can do them with either foot. I might turn with my front foot or step through with the back foot. And so, of course, the goal here is to get off of the line of the sword. And so, we might be in engagement here. And it could be, that I've opened this line and you're striking to come along that line. And so I'm moving into the low line and stepping to pass here. So even if you were to touch me here, there's just nothing, you couldn't even slice. You couldn't even hope to slice through my clothing. I just need to get past the point. Sometimes I may not have the time to get out of that action. So as you come there, I might actually come over the line of your sword here. So as you're thrusting through, so you can come with the thrust to me. So there I'm just reaching around your sword and delivering the thrust inside of the arm. I do have my offhand here to give me some extra support if I need it. But generally I'm going to come, if I sort of put this past you here, I'm going to continue through this and then exit out this way.
So I gain here, try to come in for the thrust, and boom, there it is.
I was mentioning we can do the front foot as well, because sometimes it's faster. So same idea. I might even use it here. It's kind of interesting if we're pushing against one another. So like you're, a little bit of, and farmers call this attachment because the edges bite into each other, from those sharp swords. And so I want to actually put my sword so it can glide along your flat, but I don't want to expose myself to you here. So I might. And so you can see I've twisted my body. My front foot is pointing this way. And that's to allow, I want to lean my body like this.
Yeah.
So I need to cantilever my support structure. And so that allows me, even against some pressure here, I can overreach your pressure. And now we're also back in that pulling it across your own face kind of idea.
That will not help me if I try to.
That's right. And yet I'm still hidden behind my sword. Even if you were doing something similar, if you were doing that girate, just as you were suggesting, I might.
Yeah, that's perfect. So and this goes right in the armpit, which is very unpleasant.
Yeah. I love the passes under the sword. Passata sotto, that's like a reverse lunge. A spasso, these different names of like getting underneath these folded positions to get under. And we have some, there's some, more dramatic ones. There's some even where I actually turn my body.
Right,
I'm still in the high line, but it's actually allowed me to lift my sword in quite a structurally strong way and get under your sword if it didn't work out.
I might still try something here, even though I'm pinned. I mean, maybe not so much because it's in the pack, so that limits how much I can use my arm.
Fabris says in this particular action, he talks about, I'm going to pass it under your arm here. He says, run them through the body to the hilt.
Yes, and
then
pinned.
Rise upward to throw them.
Perfect. They're no longer a threat at that point. If I wanted to defend against that, I would have to respond really soon. Personally, from there, I would prefer to just cut because.
Yeah, if you can just glance it aside, yeah, that's great. And then I'm more, my part of what I'm going to seek to do is just to continue in motion there. These are quite committed actions. So if I've come through here and you make that parry, I'm going to be continuing in this direction. I'm still under the cover of my sword. So as you're cutting to the other side, ideally, I'm giving myself defense just by continuing to move in that way. So one entry I might make here, especially if you're somebody who's kind of chasing my weapon. So maybe you're like, some people really want to have firm contact. So you can imagine you're like controlling. I might come up here and a certain person, so you can see I've got strength here, will lift their hilt in order to cover that space. Exactly. So we can think we're down low here again. I come up and now I'm making this passata sotto. Offhand by my head, I'm still covering. Now, of course, this would actually look more like this.
Yes.
And continue through. So we get.
There's also the version where they just go all the way down, touch the ground.
The touching the ground. I'm not as much a fan of it because people can drop hard and break their wrists. But it is traditional, and I'm fine with that.
And it's also very committed.
Yes, very committed. Yeah, again, some people are like Tigger, and they can like.
When you pass, like you're still in motion, but that way you come to a dead stop and
you're like, there
can't
you
adjust.
Yeah, and I think of using that kind of action often. Something like you found me here on the inside. I'm attacking, and now you're going to be making a thrust at me with your hilt high. right? So all these work generally when somebody's, I'm a tall guy. You think, I've got to strike up high to keep control. So you're making a nice committed attack up here. And so I might come there, and then we were talking a little bit earlier about, you know, do you need a really inexperienced person across from this? Certainly, there's a type of inexperienced person that is kind of predictable and inexperienced. They are not, they just are like, you really know when they're going to thrust and they really go for it. But a person who's erratic and inexperienced, I would probably never do this. I would only want to shut them down. Maybe if I just noticed, you know, like, uh-oh, my head, and you know, like I said, kind of an adaptive sort of situation. But often, these things appear often more against more experienced people, because we're playing a fencing match, we're playing a chess game, and I can more, against somebody who is, whether they're using my system or somebody else's, if they are fighting in a more systematic way, then there is more capacity to outplay them at that game, to lure them. You know, this is already based on those last plays. This last one is based on the idea that when I go around, you know you've got to follow me. It's also based on the idea that you see this is a good moment to attack, and you know that bringing your hilt up is a good idea. You're already a more sophisticated, which you are, a more sophisticated fighter. So if you were just a noob, you'd probably just let me go around and get control of your sword and hit you.
Yeah.
Or you would only parry, and then I would never need this technique. But it needs this idea of you to believe that you have strength, and for you to believe that I've committed an error and gone into your strength. All of those things are what set up a thing like a girata or a passata sotto. Requires actually some sophistication on the part of my opponent, enough that they can play the game with me. If they're playing some other game, then I need to just play the game of physics. Just shut them down and work the basics. I mentioned I really love scannatura. It's got a cool name, scannatura. So that's a transporting action. So sometimes it can start in a kind of a similar setup here where I have control of you. Then as you come around to strike me, I catch you here and then come and strike into the high line. So if we go back to that same thing again, as you're coming through, I'm coming like I'm going to parry you. But I might, if your hilt's high in particular, I might not even have a riposting line here. So instead, I bring it across and down. You're coming around. I hear you start to drop your hilt, so I lift to come in above it. So when we go smoothly through that type of action. And then, of course, because I've transported you back to the inside, I need to have my offhand there. But now I have you pinned between my sword and your sword. So between my offhand and the sword. I think Rapier tends to have many cooler disarms. We call this punto reversa, where we come over this way. One disarm we get is you could be giving some pressure to me here, and I could come this way, and then I can strip the sword out of your grip.
I like that.
Just like that. You're giving me some pressure, so I flip the sword, and I could plant it in your body, or at the very least put it on the inside of your arm. Then I just...
And I cannot hold on to this because otherwise this is going to be damaged.
Yeah. Kids, when you practice this at home, make sure that you don't get trapped inside of your rapier hilt. It will not stop the disarm from working, but it will hurt your fingers.
Some things got to give.
Yeah, these are pretty nice size hilts, but some hilts are quite tight.
Yeah.
And so what I recommend there is that people just hold it just at the handle, and that makes it just a little easier to not have your finger trapped. Or certainly go slow. Then if you are trapped, you can be like, hey, stop, I'd like to keep my finger, please. You don't want to deglove your finger either.
No, not particularly.
Yeah, it's why don't you try it on me? So the simplest way to find it first is just do palm up, and stick your sword into me here. And now just bring it down in a circle and just keep going around, and there it is. Capelfero shows this disarm with a dagger, where he actually uses the dagger to strike down on the sword. So I've come into this spot here, and the dagger is here in parry, and you just strike downward with the dagger, and it creates the same position. There's certainly, in things, when I come here and I have you this way, then I can disarm here, I can disarm from the hilt here, and we have all the same things on the other side. When we're coming here, I can disarm this way, so I'm pressing against the hand in the other direction. And then certainly, these show up more in the side sword side of the Italian tradition, but if you're thrusting over my weapon here and I yield under, then I might come to disarms that work this way. Disarms where we envelop the sword, disarms where we disarm somebody. Freakishly often in sparring, that capacity, somebody's just overcommitted on that outside thrust, and so you've made the thrust and we just end up here. And once you get used to the motion, it's quite easy to get there. And then, you know, here it depends. One thing we have to learn in disarms is how to work against the mechanics of the hand. So as your hand is oriented now, this way will not disarm you, right? I actually would need you to be palm up, or I need to take the weapon out this way. So just kind of having an awareness of where the seam of the finger is going to allow me to take the weapon from your grip.
It's kind of Fury-esque too, like wrapping around. And like,
grabbing the quill in, yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely create some sequences that make that one fighter or even both fighters seem particularly skilled.
Yeah.
You know, like some of these require, like you said, they require a certain skill to even be applicable, because otherwise you don't need them. You need them as a response, as a counter to another fairly complex technique.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, you know, that mentioned, if you parry me here on the inside and then grab the point of my sword, so even not, maybe I parried you here, it's fine. So here, even so you're not in a spot to do that disarm we did, but you could grab my sword here. So Talhofer actually has an answer that I think is just as viable to Rapier. He just says, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the interesting thing is that this situation sometimes happens, you know, perhaps you've struck towards me and I've parried and grabbed, and maybe you grab my sword as well. Okay, this is actually the situation Talhofer shows, so he drops here. But the thing is, if we're both on the ball, I might drop and you might drop too, and then we just trade swords, and then we, oh, you know, I like this Angus trim sword you've got. And I have had that happen in fighting as well, where we've traded swords and then had to conclude the pass with each other's weapons.
There's an idea for a fight choreography. That would look pretty neat. Totally. Especially like you in between you insert like a close-up of the confused look, like, okay.
Yeah, there's a great disarm in Fiore where having enveloped their arms, so where I come over here and I wrap up, I'm just going to spin you around here, and I take the weapon out of your grip this way, right? So I've got two swords, but I can actually come here and I could throw you and I could hit the next guy. So the thing that I've certainly wanted to do in choreography is have a group fight where I disarm one guy, and while I throw him, I'm cutting the next guy with.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So now I'm sure your channel's so popular, somebody's going to steal that from me. At least send me the link so I can see it. I'll be
credit.
Happy. Yeah, give some credit.
Otherwise you get to stabby.
Yeah, I'll actually do the technique to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed it.